Hello everyone, my name is Rain. I'm not a rich woman mistreated by my mother-in-law, but I was mistreated by my own parents. This story is about my useless husband, Charlie, and how my parents supported him more than they ever supported me. I've never told anyone this story before because I don't have many people in my life. I met Charlie about 6 years ago on a dating website. He had a decent job and seemed like a good guy. Charlie wasn't some knight in shining armor, but he was definitely a good boyfriend. We had some great years together at the start of our relationship. We dated for 4 years and then got married. He was a great partner to me and quickly became my parents' favorite. However, I did feel some resentment towards him because of that. At every family dinner, my parents would say things like, "We're so happy to have you in our family, Charlie. Rain finally made a good choice in life by bringing you to us. God really answered our prayers and gave us what we wanted. You know, we'd always wanted a son but never had one. You're such a nice young man and perfect for our family. Yes, Rain is okay and all, but she can't be our son. She doesn't understand that. Rain has always been a little selfish and greedy for attention. We're glad you stuck with her despite her flaws." They were right. I was selfish and greedy for affection. My parents always wanted a son and couldn't have one. They even tried for a bit after having me, but it wasn't possible. It made them resent me throughout my life. When I was young, I couldn't understand why they neglected me and favored other children if they were boys. They always complained about me and how they missed out on having a son. As I grew up, I was determined to prove to them that I could be just as good as a son. I got great grades, went to college, and got a good job. I even sent them monthly allowances so they wouldn't have to work anymore. Still, they never appreciated me. Charlie did nothing for them, but they loved him more than me. I tried to push aside my resentment because I was happy that my parents finally approved of one choice I made. Charlie also enjoyed the attention he got from my parents. His own parents had disowned him, and I didn't know why. None of his relatives even came to our wedding. Slowly, I started to understand why almost everyone in his life cut him off. He was a thief. I wish I were exaggerating, but I'm not. At first, it started off as him being lazy. One day, he suddenly took a lower-paying job because he didn't want to work long hours anymore. He said it was to avoid getting depressed, so I decided to switch jobs at my company and took a lower position with a pay cut to help out. "Why would you do that, Charlie? This is a serious pay cut and it will affect our life," I said. "Why would it affect us? You earn well enough to support our lifestyle. Just put more money into our joint account. That would solve everything," he replied. "You can't just assume that, Charlie. Things like this require a family discussion. If you want more money from me, you should have discussed it with me first. Do you have no regard for my mental health? Why would I even discuss this with you? We're married, so there's no my money or your money anymore. Stop being so dramatic," Charlie said. I was a bit annoyed by how casually Charlie was acting about the whole thing, and the fact that he refused to separate our finances worried me. But I still supported him because I loved him. That was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. Guys, this man spent all his money and time on video games. Yes, whatever little money he earned was spent on them. He put $500 into our joint account, but later he took out even more for himself. Charlie and I had countless arguments about this in the past. He was draining my savings and taking almost all of my paychecks. Sometimes he didn't even contribute anything to the household. He didn't help with chores either. All he did was work, play games, and spend money on things he wanted. I was getting sick and tired of being financially taken advantage of. No amount of talking ever helped. Instead, he always turned things around on me and yelled at me. My parents also took his side. They said, "Rain, why is your husband calling us, saying that you are financially abusing him? This is very unlike you, Rain. You better explain yourself." "Dad, I'm not financially abusing him. In fact, it's the opposite. He's been draining my savings and making me pay for 90% of our household expenses." "So what, Rain? People need to spend money on their family after marriage. It's shameful how you don't let Charlie use your credit card. You're punishing him for not having a fancy job like you. How did you become so greedy?" "Mom, he's misused my credit cards before. That's why I don't let him use them anymore. I can't risk our future knowing he has no control over his spending." But my parents still took Charlie's side. That made me even angrier. I knew he was using my parents to make me give him all my money. Little by little, all the love I had for him faded away. But one day, things reached a breaking point. I discovered that he had taken $20,000 from my personal account without permission. What did he spend it on? A new gaming PC and accessories. I was furious. I tried to get the charges canceled, but it didn't work. So, as a last resort, I decided to report it to the police. Charlie was furious when they came to arrest him that day. I was determined that my marriage had to end. I needed to get out. What I didn't realize was that I would lose more than just Charlie because of my decision. I texted my parents to tell them what happened. I didn't want them to hear about it from someone else, so I told them that night. They saw the messages but didn't reply. I was a little worried about their silence, but I was too exhausted to think about it, so I went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up and saw a text from Charlie. He said, "Hey wife, I'm already out of jail. Are you surprised? Well, I am too. I never thought your parents would be the ones to bail me out." "What? My parents bailed you out? That's impossible. They would never do that to me." "You're wrong, Rain. One call from me, and your parents were eager to help me out. They even cursed you out while they were at the police station. I must say, they are very disappointed in you." Hearing those words made my stomach turn. I didn't want to believe that my parents would do something like this. I rushed over to their house to get answers. I had no idea why they had bailed Charlie out. I had tried to keep them as uninvolved as possible. But they still managed to talk to Charlie and pay for his bail. I was getting really angry thinking about what they did. I walked into my parents' house and said, "Mom, Dad, please don't tell me you bailed Charlie out. Don't tell me what I heard is true. I can't believe you could do something like this, Rain. We raised you better than that. You're just punishing Charlie because he didn't listen to you. After marriage, he has every right to use your credit card. All your money is his money too. He did nothing wrong," my dad said. "Dad, he stole from me. He took $20,000 from my accounts, and this was after he had already emptied our joint account in the past. When does it stop?" I replied. "We know you've been financially controlling towards him, Rain. It's not right to shame your own husband for spending money. You were a bad wife to him. Charlie told us how you refused to put more money into your joint account. Spouses shouldn't hide their money from each other. Charlie doesn't hide anything from you," Dad insisted. Charlie didn't hide money because he had nothing to hide. After every paycheck, he had no money left. He barely contributed anything to our household expenses. "Oh my God, are you shaming a man for earning less than you? What can poor Charlie do when he earns so little? I can't believe what a greedy and selfish brat you've become," Dad said angrily. No matter what I said, my parents still supported Charlie. I should have seen this coming. They'd always preferred him because he was a man. Charlie filled that gap in their hearts from not having a son. Having a good and successful daughter wasn't enough for them. Still, I thought they wouldn't choose any man over their own child. I was wrong. My parents were completely hopeless. Their words hurt me when they blamed me. I was disappointed and sad, but I wasn't ready for what they said next. "Rain, you have truly turned into a horrible woman. We're ashamed of what you've become. We can't be associated with such a selfish daughter like you, so your father and I have made some decisions. We've invited Charlie over to our house. He'll be staying with us until you come to your senses. We'll pay for his lawyer fees and everything. You'd better drop the case and take him back, or we'll disown you. You're going to house the man who stole from me and financially abused me for years? Are you really going to disown me over this? You can't be serious." "We are dead serious, Rain. It's time we taught you a lesson. Just because you're financially independent doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Charlie has been such a good son-in-law to us. It's time we stand up for him and help him out in this tough time. He's already like a son to us, so we'll let him stay with us until you realize your mistake." Nothing could have prepared me for this. I thought my parents were biased towards my husband, but I never thought they would disown me for him. They constantly praised my abusive, freeloading husband for his wrong decisions and belittled me for being responsible. What they said that day completely shattered my heart. All the love I had for them was gone. I realized that all my life I had been loving the wrong people, but I wasn't going to let them take advantage of me anymore, so I said, "Fine then, have him in this house. But if he comes to live here, I will stop sending you money. I won't pay you a cent, so you can go and spend it on my loser husband. We expected that from you, Rain. We already know what a selfish person you are. You don't have to send us money. We can take care of ourselves. It's just like you to threaten us with money. Listen to me, Rain, you can't use your money to control us. The money you earn has made you proud. We'll show you what a mistake you've made by using your money to manipulate people. There's no reason for us to stay in contact with you. Don't come to this house or talk to us again. I looked at my mother, and she agreed with my dad. Both of them told me to go away and never show my face again. They even said I shouldn't call or text them. I took their words to heart and left the house. I didn't cry in front of them, but I broke down in my car. I cried so much that I had to pull over to calm myself. I spent over 30 years of my life trying to win my parents' love, and yet they threw me away like trash. They treated me like trash and called me trash. I felt like my world had ended that day. I went home and cried myself to sleep. The next day, Charlie called me just to brag about how he'd stolen my parents. He was already settled into my old room and called to tell me how much my parents hated me and loved him more. He said, "Guess what, Rain? I'm in your precious room right now. Your parents even came to pick me up. They really hate you right now." I replied, "Charlie, you're being rewarded for your crimes. It must be fun having loving parents who aren't even your own." He said, "It was so easy to manipulate them, Rain. I didn't even have to try. You ran after them like a dog, but they never loved you like this. Honestly, I think they hated you all along." Poor little Rain worked so hard to make her parents love her and still failed miserably. I couldn't take it anymore, so I hung up while he laughed at my misery. That horrible man even had the nerve to send me a picture of him lying on my old bed. I wanted to cry, but instead, I pulled myself together and made a plan. I was going to follow through with my promise of not sending my parents any more money. I knew the absence of my allowance would hurt them, plus Charlie would eventually show his true colors. So I stopped sending them money and waited. As I predicted, just 2 days after the month ended, my parents started pestering me for money. They broke their own no-contact order and began asking, and demanding, that I send them money. They said, "Why haven't you sent us money yet? Do you know how many bills we have?" I replied, "What money, Dad? I already told you I won't send you money anymore. Funny to see you contact me after you proudly told me to get out of your life." Rain, don't be rude. Things were said when we were all angry. It's been weeks since that incident. It's time to move on. Families don't hold grudges. So now that you need money, you suddenly remember I'm family? Yesterday, Charlie seemed more like family to you. Why don't you ask him for money? That won't be possible, Rain. He doesn't pay for anything. We paid his bail, his phone bill, and his food. He's still asking us for money. Well, use your savings to feed him then. I'm sure you've saved some from the checks I used to give you. We already dipped into our savings when we paid for Charlie's bail. We have very little left. We need you to send us money, Rain. It's not fair for you to hold the past over us. No, this is completely fair, Mom and Dad. For years you've treated me unfairly because I'm a girl. You chose Charlie and loved him only because he's a man. I tried so hard to be a good daughter, to win your affection, but you two just showed me how wrong I was. I should have done this a long time ago. I'm cutting you off. I don't need people like you in my life anymore. Years of hurt and betrayal poured out of me. I absolutely unloaded on them, telling them exactly how angry I was. My parents were silent while I spoke. When I finished, they started pleading for forgiveness because they really needed my help. I hung up on them without listening any further. I had predicted that my parents would come banging on my door with apologies and pleas. I even expected some entitlement on their part. But my revenge became even sweeter because Charlie did something stupid that made my parents file a police report against him and kick him out. If you want to know why, you need to see this conversation I had with them. One day, they showed up at my doorstep to try and talk to me. I didn't open the door but spoke to them from inside. They said, "Rain, you need to hear us out, dear. We're here to apologize for our mistakes. We never should have let an outsider into our home. You are family, and you should have been our priority. We got caught up in our dream of having a son and didn't realize how bad your husband was. We've already paid dearly for it. Charlie stole our credit cards and drained our savings. We don't even have money for food anymore. Rain, please don't let your parents starve. We need your help. We promise we'll stand by you this time. We've already reported the theft to the police and kicked Charlie out. He'll never step foot in our lives again. I replied, you should have thought about this when you happily chose Charlie over me. You're the only ones responsible for your situation now. I will only send you money for this month, but after that, I'm done. You have a month to figure out what to do. I said that and left them on the porch. I felt a little bad for my parents, but then I remembered how little I meant to them. That was enough to make me angry again. I did send them some money because I couldn't let them starve, but that was the last check I sent them. Just as they said, my parents filed a police report to get the charges reversed on their credit cards. Surprisingly, they sent back the money I'd sent them last time. They kept begging and pleading with me for forgiveness. The begging went on for so long that I started to get used to it. I saw it coming but didn't expect them to be so persistent. However, what they did next was even more unexpected. They actually signed over their house to me as an apology for all the mistakes they made against me. My parents showed up on my porch and left the papers there. I didn't know what to think. Apparently, they also got jobs so that I wouldn't have to spend my money on them anymore. I returned the papers and haven't contacted them yet. As for my husband, well, he's my ex-husband now. Yes, I filed for divorce and got him sent to prison for fraud. With a double case against him, Charlie's chances of avoiding jail were slim. Just as predicted, the judge put him in prison.
Annie, a 33-year-old woman, wants to share a real-life experience. She was the only girl among 3 siblings and married her current husband against her dad's approval due to concerns about living with in-laws and caring for her supposedly blind father-in-law. Despite her dad's objections, she moved from the West Coast to the East Coast to her husband's family home. Her dad didn't think highly of her mother-in-law or husband, but her mom encouraged her to follow her heart. Initially, her husband was kind, but over time, his kindness disappeared. The power dynamics in the house favored Annie's mother-in-law and husband over her supposedly blind father-in-law. He was diagnosed as blind a few years ago and mostly stayed home. Initially, there were caregivers, but after Annie got married, her mother-in-law and husband dismissed them without consulting anyone, citing expense as the reason. Annie insisted on retaining at least one male caregiver that her father-in-law was familiar with. She argued that her husband, being a man, should assist with bathing and personal care. Reluctantly, her husband agreed to keep the male caregiver who had been helping the family even before the father-in-law's blindness. Despite this, Annie found herself neglected in caring for her supposedly blind father-in-law while her husband and mother-in-law enjoyed themselves. One day, the supposedly blind father-in-law suddenly stood up, leaving Annie wondering about what happened and contemplating confronting her husband and mother-in-law about their behavior. I'm in charge of mornings, evenings, and a whole day each week when the caregiver is off. Despite working remotely full-time for a company, my husband and his mother treat me like a substitute caregiver, expecting me to be available all the time. When I raised concerns, they dismissed it, saying, "You married into this family with a caregiving license. Manage that baggage quietly." Ironically, they refer to my father-in-law as baggage, even though his wealth covers most of their expenses. Yet, my mother-in-law mistreats him, and my husband has even expressed a desire for his inheritance sooner. Although I considered divorcing my husband, I couldn't bear the thought of my father-in-law being mistreated in my absence. On their days off, my mother-in-law and husband leave me to care for him while they enjoy themselves and spend money recklessly. Originally, my father-in-law was a significant landowner, owning properties that generated passive income. I only managed the payments, but my mother-in-law and husband would use that money as they pleased. When I discussed this with my father-in-law, he apologized, recognizing that they saw him as a cash cow. Taking care of him wasn't burdensome, but my issue was with my mother-in-law and husband, who did neither housework nor held jobs yet acted high and mighty. My frustration with the unhelpful pair intensified. Then, out of the blue, my mother-in-law and husband announced a Caribbean trip for 2 to 3 weeks, leaving me with caregiving duties. They cheerfully packed a week in advance, instructing me not to do anything unnecessary during their absence. As they happily left, I finally had a moment to relax. To my surprise, my supposedly blind father-in-law independently changed into a suit and invited me to go out. It became evident that he wasn't completely blind, though his vision was not perfect. Handing me a business card, he indicated where he wanted to go. 3 weeks later, my oblivious husband and mother-in-law returned, refreshed from their trip, complaining about the gloomy atmosphere. They suggested going to the Maldives next time, all while immediately griping about my father-in-law and me as soon as they came back. 10 minutes after their return, the doorbell rang, and I answered through the monitor. 2 men in suits were at the front door. I recognized one as James's lawyer. Mother-in-law and my husband looked puzzled. "Oh, it's James's lawyer. What brings you here?" Father-in-law walked into the living room, guiding the lawyers to chairs and sitting down himself. He seemed to walk and sit by himself, which surprised me. "You two, sit here." He instructed my husband and mother-in-law. They sat down reluctantly, eyeing the lawyer quietly. Father-in-law called me over, and I took a seat next to him. "Today, I've set up this meeting for 3 reasons. The first one is about your husband's affair." Father-in-law pulled out a photograph from an envelope, revealing my husband, my mother-in-law, and an unfamiliar woman. The intimacy in the photo clearly indicated something was going on. "Who's this woman?" Neither my husband nor my mother-in-law responded. More photos emerged, showing my husband with his arm around the woman, enjoying her company, and entering a hotel. The photos, taken at different times and places, painted a clear picture of infidelity. "I've known about your husband's infidelity since he married you. He didn't just go to the Caribbean with the 2 of you, did he? He was with her too. The evidence of his cheating was undeniable." "Why? How did you?" My husband seemed to believe he had gotten away with it. In truth, I hadn't noticed, as between work, household chores, and caregiving, I had little time to think about it. I had assumed he was having fun outings just with his mom. "Do you have anything to say to her?" My husband awkwardly glanced at me, then, breaking the tension, admitted, "Well, if we've been found out, so be it. Yes, you're just a caregiver to him. He has a new partner now, a so-called common-law wife, if you will." My mother-in-law laughed and remarked, "Is this true?" Even when I directly confronted my husband, he could only mumble, "Oh well," without attempting to explain. "We've recently rented a place for just the 2 of them. While they're enjoying their time, I stay alone in a hotel. Don't you think she makes a better wife for my son than you, who can't even spend time with him?" According to my mother-in-law, this has been going on for over a year. "If you wanted to do such a thing, you should have divorced me." "Oh, I did think about letting him divorce you, but she doesn't want to take care of James. So what can we do? In another couple of years, we can just put James in a facility. That's what I thought." She spoke without a hint of remorse. Hearing all this, I couldn't hide my shock and disbelief. "Well, that's how it is. I'm fine with you divorcing right now. But since you'd be abandoning caregiving, don't expect any compensation in the divorce settlement." My sorrow turned to anger. Enough is enough. You can't just say whatever you want, playing with her life like it's some kind of game. Father-in-law jumped up with energy and yelled at the 2 of them. Husband and mother-in-law were taken aback. "But you've been hiding something too. You can actually see, can't you? Otherwise, how could you walk around your room and sit down by yourself?" Mother-in-law quickly retorted, "That's right. You lied to us." Husband desperately tried to change the subject. "It's not a lie. I did go blind, but it's partial blindness. I'm not completely blind. I've been undergoing treatments, and right now I'm at an intermediate stage. Why then did you pretend you can't see? Pretend you all assume that on your own?" When I woke up one morning with bad eyesight, I went to the hospital with a home caregiver and returned in a wheelchair. It was you all who jumped to conclusions, making funny faces in front of me, thinking I couldn't see you. If you knew there was a misunderstanding, why didn't you correct us? That's not fair. The home caregiver tried to set things right, but I stopped her. I wanted to observe how things played out because it seemed like both of you were happy about my blindness. At those words, both my husband and mother-in-law looked away. It hadn't been a month since my father-in-law's blindness when I married my husband. All I knew was, my father was blind. I had assumed he was completely blind. Another topic is divorce. What my daughter-in-law and my son decide to do is up to my daughter-in-law. If needed, I can introduce you to a lawyer. However, the divorce I'm referring to isn't between the two of them. It's between you and me. Father-in-law directed his gaze straight at mother-in-law while discussing the idea of divorce. Divorce? Who even thinks about that? If we're going there, let's address the last issue. I want my money back. It turned out that father-in-law had been providing mother-in-law with a monthly living allowance. However, mother-in-law, assuming blind father-in-law wouldn't notice, had been tapping into other savings, particularly the inheritance left by my father-in-law's father. You always had a penchant for lavish spending. That's why I set up a fixed amount to be transferred to you through the home caregiver. But knowing your tendencies, I anticipated you might dip into other funds when you found out about my blindness. That's why I maintained separate accounts for my earnings and the inheritance. A year later, upon checking with the bank, it was revealed that around $60,000 had been spent in just that year. $60,000. It was astonishing that mother-in-law could squander such a significant amount of money every month. If I had that kind of money in a year, I wouldn't even know what to buy. But for mother-in-law, with her spending habits, it seems like pocket change. I can't possibly pay that back. Besides, it's my money too, right? Whether it's an inheritance or whatever, I have the right to use it as I please. You don't understand inheritance law. Even if we divorce, that inheritance won't go to you. If you can repay that money all at once, I'll let you stay, and we won't proceed with a divorce. But if you can't, consider that $60,000 as part of the property division and quietly agree to a divorce. The real estate owned by father-in-law also originally came from his father's inheritance, making it exempt from being claimed by his wife, mother-in-law, in a property division. But Dad, I realize now how wrong I've been all this time. I want to change. Can you please forgive me for everything? The husband clung desperately to his father's feet. Daughter-in-law, what will you do? Do you still want to be with this lazy cheater? No, I've come to see the light. I realize how silly it was to put up with him just because I loved him. Can you recommend a lawyer? I'll be seeking compensation in the divorce proceedings and will be divorcing him. I lost all feelings for my husband and decided to demand compensation in the divorce proceedings. At the same time, I got a divorce application from a meticulous lawyer and signed it right there. Wait a second. I don't have the money to pay any compensation. You can start a part-time job or whatever and pay it back. I'll let you stay in this house for a while because of our son, daughter-in-law. Not because he's my son, but to keep an eye on him. My husband, tears in his eyes, apologized to me and signed the divorce application and the compensation agreement. Also, I want to give you a portion of my assets as a token of my gratitude and apology. I'd rather give it to you than to my son. He handed me a copy of his will. Wait, what is this? The original's with the lawyer. I can't give it to you now. When I pass away, the lawyer will contact you at that time. I want you to accept my assets. The will stated that a portion of his property and bank deposits would be inherited by me. I can't accept this. I'd only been with them for just over a year. I haven't done anything special to deserve this from father-in-law. No, that's not true. You stood by my side and tried to protect me even when the two of them said such terrible things, father-in-law said with a gentle smile. What? Why are you giving it to that young woman? I've been with you for many more years. Quiet. What have you done for me? From the moment we got married, you left all the household chores to the help. And weren't you the same with raising our son? It was me and the maids who looked after him when he was young. I know about your affairs and that you spent money on your lovers. It's shameful what you and our son have done. Even my husband appeared surprised at father-in-law's words. Wait, Mom said it was Dad who had the affair and that she raised me all by herself. What's going on? Mother-in-law looked nervous, her eyes darting around. Do you believe James over me? It was evident to everyone that mother-in-law was lying. While my husband was taken aback, this dispute unfolded between father-in-law and mother-in-law. The truth that my husband had an affair was undeniable, and there was little sympathy for him given his own transgressions. The conversation neared its conclusion. Mother-in-law was compelled to sign the divorce papers and instructed to pack her bags and leave without resistance. Mother-in-law exited the house, and on that day, father-in-law and mother-in-law officially divorced. As for the compensation for my husband's divorce proceedings, father-in-law settled it in a lump sum, believing it would be in my best interest. My husband would repay father-in-law. I packed my belongings to return to my parents' home and arranged for them to be shipped. In the spacious house, thanks to father-in-law, my husband resided on the second floor, confined to specific areas to avoid crossing paths with me. I managed to steer clear of them for an entire month. With everything settled, on the moving day, the intercom rang, and to my surprise, my parents appeared on the screen. As I opened the front door, my father was already shedding tears, and my mother greeted me with a smile. It turned out that father-in-law had generously covered the travel expenses and made all the arrangements. Even though I had only informed my parents of my decision to get a divorce, they were well aware of the challenging year I had endured. As it happened, my father had received a call from father-in-law about 6 months after my wedding. Father-in-law, being transparent about the situation, had said, "I'll take responsibility and address the issue. I'd appreciate it if you could wait a little longer before coming to get her." Having heard the full story from mother-in-law to husband to father-in-law, my father realized that simply instructing me to return wouldn't be convincing. Accepting claims of infidelity about someone you love, especially without evidence or valid reasons, is challenging. Therefore, he chose to trust father-in-law's judgment. 2 years have passed since then, and it appears that my husband has been gradually repaying father-in-law. Thankfully, my job, which has been fully remote from the beginning, hasn't tied me to a specific location. I still maintain occasional communication with father-in-law, and my work is thriving. Despite initial concerns about growing weary of love, that hasn't been the case. I now have a boyfriend, and I'm enjoying a relaxed and happy life with my family.
My name is Susan Miller. I'm 47 years old. I've been married to John for 25 years. Our family includes John, who is also 47, and our daughter Emily, who is in high school. But something happened because of John that almost broke our family apart. It all began when John forgot his phone at home one day when he went to work. He's always on that thing during meals. It's no wonder he leaves it behind sometimes. When I picked up his phone, I saw messages from a woman I didn't know. "Are you coming over today or staying with your wife? I need to talk to you, Mia, so please come over." What is all this? I panicked as I read the shocking messages. Then my husband John, realizing he'd forgotten his phone, returned home. "Do you know where my phone is? It looks like I left it at home." "Come on, if you have it, just give it back. I'm going to be late for work." What's going on? Who's this legal wife? And who's Mia? When I confronted him, John seemed surprised at first but then sighed heavily and began to explain. "I was planning to tell you about this. I had everything prepared, but I guess getting caught now is probably the right timing." "The right timing? What do you mean?" "Just like you're thinking, I have a mistress. Those messages you saw were from her." "What? You've been cheating? For how long?" "I guess it's been over 15 years now." "Over 15 years?" "Yeah, her daughter is in junior high school now. She's technically my child. She would be Emily's half-sister. She's facing high school entrance this year. It's going to be tough. So I'm planning to divorce you and marry her. I intend to support my daughter as a father." I couldn't understand what John was saying at all. "Daughter Emily is your daughter too, isn't she? Don't you care about her?" "I didn't say I didn't care about her. Emily has been my precious daughter for 17 years too, but I don't plan to take her with me. It would be awkward to have a daughter who's not biologically related to her mother and the family, you know. Everyone would feel uncomfortable. so I'll leave Emily to you. In return, I'll make sure to pay child support until she graduates from college. And if Emily reaches out, I'll be willing to talk, so that should be fine, right? Are you serious? I'm dead serious. In fact, I think I'm offering a pretty good deal. Oh, and here, I shouldn't forget to give this to you. What's this? I've already filled in my part, so just write down yours and submit it. Let me know once you've filed the divorce papers. I'll come to pick up my stuff once the divorce is finalized. Wait a minute. What are you saying? You're not coming back? Yeah, I'll be living at her place from now on. I'll talk to my folks. You just take care of Emily and don't do anything unnecessary. Well then, thanks for the last 25 years. Take care. Hey, just wait. John handed me a divorce paper and left the house in his usual attire for work. I'm sure her place must have been prepared with all the living necessities for him. How could this? What am I supposed to do now? What's wrong? Why are you upset so early in the morning? Did something happen? My daughter Emily, who was home for the school holiday, came over to me as I was feeling distressed. I shouldn't have burdened her with such heavy news, but in that moment, I ended up telling her everything. Dad has a mistress. He gave me this and left. What? Cheating? And this is a divorce paper? Is Dad serious about this? Why would he? He apparently has another child with his mistress. A child? So I have a half-sister? Yes, from another mother. And what did he say about it? He said he'll pay child support to take care of you. What about apologies to you? Well, you're the one most affected, Mom, and there are no apologies. What is he thinking? After hearing my story, Emily bit her lip, thinking for a moment before responding. I see. If Dad's going to act like this, then we'll have to come up with our own plan. Huh? What do you mean? Don't worry, it's nothing dangerous. Since Dad seems to have no remorse for betraying us for over 15 years, we'll make sure he deeply regrets what he did. But of course, that requires some planning. But Mom, you're not blaming yourself for Dad's actions, are you? It's all Dad's fault. You don't need to feel guilty. We don't need to hold back. As we watch Dad face the consequences, he's getting what he deserves. So it's only fair that we make sure Dad understands the pain he's caused, right? Well, my daughter is actually the smartest kid in the USA. Her intelligence has amazed adults since she was little. She probably already has a plan in mind for this. Just wait, Mom. I promise I'll make Dad regret what he did. With that, Emily wore a mischievous smile. A month later, Emily and I had settled into our new routine, just the two of us. The door creaked open, and in walked my husband, John, but with patches of his hair shaved off as if by a clipper. The first thing he said was, "What the hell were you thinking?" Dad stormed into the house with clippers in hand. "After hearing everything from you, look what you've done to me," he said, pointing at his patchy haircut. John went on a tirade. He explained how he was relaxing at his mistress's house when suddenly his father showed up with clippers and gave him an unplanned haircut. Then he managed to escape and rushed back home in this state just to give me a piece of his mind. I warned you, didn't I? I talked to Dad, so you weren't supposed to do anything unnecessary. You know how much Dad hates dishonesty. He's always been strict with me because of that, and it's been traumatic. Despite knowing that, you still went and told on me. Are you jealous? Jealous that we might be happy while you're stuck in misery? Is that why you haven't filed for divorce yet? Then you spill everything to Dad. You're truly pathetic. The reason I cheated was because I couldn't stand this side of you, you coward. That's when it happened. What are you misunderstanding? It wasn't Mom who told Grandpa everything. It was me. My daughter calmly responded to the raging John. What? So Grandpa attacked with clippers, huh? Just as I expected. What do you mean, as expected? Emily, did you tell Grandpa to attack me with clippers? No, I didn't say that. I just handed something to Grandpa, proof of your affair. This goes back a month. Hey Mom, what do you think is the scariest thing to Dad in this world? Soon after John left, Emily asked me that question. The scariest thing to him? Yes, that would be Grandpa. I once asked Dad what he was most afraid of in this world. He immediately answered Dad. I had also heard about it before. My father-in-law detests dishonesty above all and wouldn't hesitate to correct anyone behaving improperly, even strangers. John was raised strictly by my father-in-law since childhood and said he could never go against him. Dad said before he left, I'll talk to Dad about it. so don't do anything unnecessary. That's because the last thing Dad wanted was for Grandpa to find out about this situation. So I'm pretty sure Dad won't tell Grandpa the real reason for the divorce. He might say we just couldn't agree on things, or worse, he might even claim you cheated. That's terrible. That's why we need to act first to prevent that from happening. Plus, there's another benefit to telling Grandpa first. Dad is an employee at the company Grandpa runs. Dad got the job through connections, thanks to Grandpa, and has climbed up to the position of manager. Can you imagine what would happen if Grandpa, who hates dishonesty, found out about Dad's affair and secret child of over 15 years? It's going to be a big mess, maybe even a trigger for Dad to get fired. Dad seems to have earned some trust at his company, but Grandpa is definitely Dad's Achilles heel. That's why I plan to use this to our advantage and push Dad into the depths of hell. But first, I need to gather solid evidence of the affair to make Grandpa understand. Saying that, Emily opened the laptop Dad had left behind evidence. How are you going to? Normally, you'd need a detective agency to catch evidence of an affair. And there's probably a password on that laptop, right? I doubt you'd leave anything compromising on it. Normally, yes, but I don't need any of that. There's no point in paying someone to find something that's right here. Saying that, my daughter dismissed my concerns and rapidly typed on the keyboard, managing to unlock it in just a few seconds. She then extracted all the relevant information contained within. Wow, you really unlocked it. Well, of course. This is nothing for me now. Let's see what kind of evidence Dad left on this laptop. From their exchanges, it looks like Dad's mistress was an ex-girlfriend they reconnected. When I was still in your belly, Mom, that reunion sparked an affair that lasted over 15 years. Look, here's a photo. Dad's mistress seems to be this woman. Mom, do you recognize her? The photo Emily showed me was one of Dad and his mistress looking very close. I had seen the woman in the photo before. She's Dad's childhood friend. She got married early and moved away from her hometown. But after her divorce, she came back. I met her once when we visited his parents. I see. So she came back to town, and that's when the affair started. I'm truly appalled by my own father. Suddenly, Emily froze upon seeing a particular photo. What's wrong? Did you find something? Look at this. Emily looked at a photo of a girl who appeared to be the hidden child. Probably this is my half-sister, Dad's secret child. Are you okay? If it's too hard for you, Mom can take over, and you don't have to do this anymore, Emily. No, it's not that I mind. I want to see this through to the end. Saying that, Emily turned back to the computer. It seems like this girl hasn't been officially recognized as Dad's child. He hasn't acknowledged her. Well, that makes sense. He was probably planning to acknowledge her after the divorce. I'm not sure if this girl knows about us yet, as Dad said. It's confirmed he has a secret child, but I found out something else that's shocking. Shocking? Dad seems to have bought them a condo. What? A condo? Yes. A new condo right in front of the station. Given the location and it's a high-rise, it must be quite expensive. Oh look, the price is listed online. When I checked the price of the condo my husband bought for his mistress, it was a whopping $1 million. On the other hand, we live in a rental condo I've been leasing since my single days. We discussed buying a house many times, but his consistent response was renting is more cost-effective. So there was this reason behind it. Is that all the information? I was expecting a bit more, honestly. Isn't this enough? It's sufficient, but I wanted more concrete evidence, like photos of them coming out of a hotel. The information we got from this computer includes the mistress and the hidden child's names and photos, and the fact that Dad bought a condo for his mistress. How about we make a direct visit to the condo? If we capture photos of them coming out, that could serve as evidence. Aren't you curious about what kind of life they're leading? Saying that, Emily grinned mischievously. The next day, we headed to the condo where we presumed Dad was staying. The condo looks bigger than in the photos. Really, it's surprising he had enough money to buy a condo for his mistress. Where did he get the money? Mom, isn't that Dad? Looks like they're heading out as a family, Emily pointed. And there were Dad, his mistress, and the hidden child. I quickly captured their image on my camera. From the outside, they look like a normal family. You wouldn't think he's been having an affair for 15 years. They must be considered a happy family by the neighbors. At that moment, we overheard a conversation from the three passing right by our hiding spot. Hey, when's the divorce going to be finalized? You shoved the divorce papers at your official wife before leaving, right? Yeah, but she seems reluctant. Hasn't got any message that she submitted the divorce papers, even though I said I'd pay alimony. What's she hesitating for? Maybe she still has feelings for you, who knows? But even if that's true, you're the only one for me since the beginning. I have no intention of getting back with her, John. Hey Dad, what about me? I'm more important than that other daughter, right? Of course you're my only daughter, Mia. Yay, I don't care if she goes to some famous high school or whatever. Dad chose me. I wonder what kind of face she's making now, being abandoned by Dad. Poor thing. Hearing their outrageous conversation left us astounded. Then, I thought she didn't know since she's not recognized, but she knew about us. No need to hold back then. Let's not just plunge Dad into hell. But those two as well. Emily seemed even more determined to seek revenge after overhearing their talk, glaring at the three with a wrathful expression. But it's good we came here. We got a video of the three leaving the condo, and thanks to their chatter so close to us, we caught their entire conversation. With this evidence, I bet we can demand a much higher amount, and Grandpa won't stay silent for sure. With that evidence in hand, we went to a law firm to draft the claim documents. For the finishing touch, Emily and I headed to my in-laws' house. It's rare for you to visit without notice and just the two of you at that. Something happened. Actually, I shared everything that had occurred with my in-laws, Mike and Lily. Mike started trembling and then exploded in rage. Over 15 years of cheating, and he even has a secret child. That bastard, where is he now? He's been at his mistress's place since he left in the condo he bought her, right in front of the station. What? When Dad said, "My daughter is only Mia. Only you, does Dad hate me?" After living together all this time, he values that woman's child more. And if Mom and Dad get divorced, does that mean I'm no longer Grandpa and Grandma's granddaughter? I don't want that, Emily. That's not going to happen. Even if they get divorced, you're our only granddaughter. Don't worry, Grandpa will make sure he pays for this. His expression was exactly like Emily's that time. He had a look of burning vengeance on his face. And then, a few days after we left his house, Mike, armed with a clipper, raided the apartment where he was staying. That's how we got to this point. You did this. Sorry to shock you, but I have something to give you. With that, I handed my ex-husband a brown envelope. What's this? Open it, you'll see. He hesitantly opened the envelope and turned pale upon seeing the contents. What? Why? Inside the brown envelope were documents related to child support and division of property. Why? You're wondering why Dad did warrants paying this entire amount, right? I can't understand why you'd question that, but this amount is just since you seem not to understand. Let me explain. It was determined by several factors. I think what Dad has to pay Mom is fair. For that amount, I still have an issue with the amount, but this division of property is absurd. Why do I have to sell the condo I bought? That's ridiculous. I thought you'd say that. What? The condo you bought for your mistress in your name is subject to division of property. That's a well-established fact. It's not something you can argue against. What about them then? You're not telling me they have to leave, are you? Exactly. If a house is being sold, the people living there need to leave. You're heartless. I'll throw those words right back at you. After all these 15 years, you've really outdone yourself in deceiving us, you coward. You seem quite unhappy with these documents, but no matter what you say here, Dad's wishes won't be met. These aren't documents we made up. They were professionally drafted by a lawyer we hired. So if you have any issues with the amount, why don't you hire a lawyer yourself and file an appeal? Whether that'll be successful or not, I can't say. Hearing this, my husband blurted out, Okay, I get it. I'll break it off with her and move out of that condo. That's what you want, right? Apparently, the idea of paying hefty alimony was too much for him. He said he'd break up with her and return home. However, things didn't go as he had hoped. Break up? Move out? Do as you like. It's no longer my concern. Not your concern. This is about us. We're married. We should talk more. Are you misunderstanding something? We're nothing to each other anymore, complete strangers. What are you saying? But you haven't submitted the divorce papers yet. That's only because I've been too busy dealing with your mess to get in touch. I submitted the divorce papers the day you left. So we're already divorced. What? Too bad, Dad, it's too late. The divorce papers have been processed, and you two are divorced. As for the documents, we'll be claiming accordingly. Damn it. And don't forget about the child support payments. I heard it from Mom. You said it yourself, right? That as a father, you would diligently pay child support until I graduate from college. Thinking back, I can't recall any fatherly things you've done for me, but at least for this last part, be responsible and live up to your word, Dad. Jan was left speechless by Emily's words. Then, that moment came. A call came through on my phone. It was John's father, Mike, probably anticipating that the ex-husband had stormed back to me. He called, and his guess was spot on. Seeing that I was on the phone with his father, the ex-husband's face turned pale. Mike wants to talk to you, Dad. No, tell him I'm not here. That's impossible. Besides, Dad knows you're here, so avoiding him now will only make things worse later, won't it? Reluctantly, he took the phone and started talking. Dad, what do you want? I didn't. Why do I have to come home? Wait just a minute. Hey, what did he say? He said I have to come home because he has something to talk about. Well, you better go then. Go? Are you kidding? If I go to Dad, I'm finished. What should I do? But fretting about it here isn't going to help, is it? What do you mean? Grandpa said you're fired. Why? I don't know the details, but if it's serious enough for a firing warning over an affair, you must have done something quite bad, right? Well, looks like you do have an idea by that expression. Then you better hurry to Grandpa's place. Hearing his daughter's words, the ex-husband rushed out of the house in a panic. It seems his position meant everything to him after all. Dad, that was quicker than expected. I heard from Emily. Are you serious about firing me, Dad? Just because of this affair, which has nothing to do with work. And now you're firing me? This is clearly wrongful dismissal. Wrongful dismissal? Have you forgotten all the mistakes you've made? Unauthorized absences, being late, trouble with employees at partner companies are everyday occurrences. Other employees had to clean up your messes while you strolled around like you own the place because you're the president's son and the presumed next president. It's only natural you be laid off for this. This is a fair decision. But so suddenly. True, I've turned a blind eye until now because you're my son. But that ends today. What do you mean by that? After today, I'm cutting ties with you. You betrayed the two people you should have cherished most, trying to find happiness just for yourself. You're no longer my son or anything to me. Never show your face to me again. No, this can't be true. To my father-in-law's declaration, the ex-husband was fired. Furthermore, being told that their familial bond was severed, he collapsed to his knees, screaming in agony. When my father-in-law told us this, Emily and I high-fived each other. However, a few days later, he did as Emily suggested and hired a lawyer to dispute my claims, but his appeal was rejected. In the end, he had to pay exactly as I initially demanded. It seemed John's mistress was entirely dependent on the ex-husband's salary, being a part-time housewife with a meager monthly income. Hence, I admit to what I've done and I'm reflecting on it, but I can't pay such an amount. Half? No, even a 30% reduction would be appreciated. She pleaded for a reduction, as if haggling at a market, but I rejected it. Eventually, her parents had to pay off the debt in her stead. Thus, even though he got his wish to remarry his mistress, he ended up in a terrible living situation. Of course, the hidden child who was supposed to enroll in high school couldn't do it due to her parents' self-inflicted plight. As for us, then, Mom, I'm going to take care. You too, it's really dangerous out there these days. I know, Emily. If anything happens, make sure to contact me. Even if nothing happens, I'll still check in often, and I'll come back home, even if you get tired of me. Since then, Emily has been attending a university and is living on her own for the first time today. But I'm not too worried. After everything she's managed to pull off almost single-handedly, I'm sure she can overcome anything that comes her way.